My name's Nick Moyes. I'm an architect with Jasmax Architects, and I'm one of the principals at Jasmax. Yeah, it's quite. I think it depends on what sector you're in and the type of architecture you're actually practicing. Certainly, a lot of the bigger projects that we do, it's changed drastically. But if I look at my father, he was practicing until probably about 6 months ago now, and a lot of his projects, even today, he was still on a drawing board, and most of his specifications were literally just written onto the sheet. So it's quite funny. I think within the industry, even still, there's a huge diversity about how specifications are actually utilised. I think a lot of the industry is moving away from what has traditionally been a series of strong relationships where you could get away with essentially saying, recycled, remu, like last time you built it type of specification, to one where I think in an industry that's becoming incredibly competitive. I think the last 2 or 3 years, a lot of the tender prices have been so lean that essentially once you start the contract, the contractors are clawing their way back into anything they can, and so any discrepancies that you might have in your drawings or specifications, just you're wide open to claims on that one. And I think quite rightly the clients look at you thinking, you should have had that a lot tighter. So the onus is certainly on the architect to ensure that there aren't the gaps. There's been a series of in-house spec writers who they didn't do every project, but they did most projects, and you had a built-up, ingrained organisational expertise sitting there that just meant that it rolled fairly smoothly. And I think what's happened in the last 5 to 6 years, partly driven by the computer program that our CAD package, but also just the realisation that the spec itself is such an important document that we're putting more of the emphasis of the writing of the spec onto the project architect. And we're really trying to push it that the emphasis is more on getting the spec delivered at the same time that you're doing the drawings. So at preliminary, you'll have an outline specification, which will be a loose understanding of what you want the spec to be. Develop design, you've probably got most of your spec together, but it won't be, crafted. It won't be exactly written. And then as we go through detailed design, there's a real emphasis within Jasmax to our Revit package. We try and align our keynotes with the spec section so that there's actually a link between the drawings and the specification itself. If you think about what it's trying to do, it's really trying to simplify the job of the contractor so that there are less mistakes overall. It's not like we're trying to hide stuff in a spec that you can go on site and say, you didn't see that, so you've got to do it again. What we're trying to do with the specification is to ensure that it's as simple and as legible as possible with the drawings, so that the expectation that we've got when we're designing something is what's built. So the simpler that we can make those two read together, the better. A drawing essentially quantifies the amount, and the specification qualifies it. The amount that you want of something is in the drawings. You're showing, the linear metrages of timber framing that you've got specified, or that you're trying to have built. I think then the specification is really emphasising the quality that you want that built to. And I think most clients have an expectation that when they come to an architect, they're going to have a certain quality built. And for me, I think the specification is really the key location where we have the opportunity to impress upon the contractor that's where the the quality of what we're looking for is going to be built. The specification, because it has the ability to be broken up into different sections, particularly around the different aspects of a project, the architectural team will focus on the building envelope, but you can get services and structural engineers to actually add to that with the different sections within that. And often they'll write a separate specification, but certainly I suppose one of the aims, in the same way that we're trying to get a coordinated package of drawings, we'd look to get a coordinated package of specification written in that as well. We use Revit as a practice, and we're actually finding that we can not drop our fees, but we're more competitive, and we know that we do a much more efficient job if everyone else is on Revit as well. So if we can get our structural engineers and our mechanical, electrical, plumbing, the sort of MEP, in a coordinated model as well, we can do that sort of clash detection. All of that can happen in the same model. The perfect scenario would be if all of us actually using that same CAD package to do the same drawings actually use the same spec in terms of producing a spec itself that's actually a coordinated specification as well. Would that mean one spec writer do the whole thing? Probably not, but it would just be ensuring that the spec actually talks to itself in the different sections that you're doing. And I think it's really been in the last, say, 4 years that we've been able to see the massive benefit of everyone using the same model. So I can see a scenario where in the next, say, 4 to 5 years, if we actually in the same way use exactly the same specification, that to actually have one document that doesn't contradict each other, it would be perfect. Look, I think there's a reason most of us were drawn to architecture. We were either dyslexic or essentially drawn to a pictorial world, and I think most of us actually really struggle with spec writing. I think for me, one of the reasons that Masterspec is actually so attractive is the fact that it removes a lot of the necessity to create. You can really get in there and edit, which I think most of us sort of are better at than the writing side of it. I think the only way really to build it is from the bottom up, and I think you probably halfway through preliminary design, when you have a good understanding of what the building is going to be, is that perfect opportunity to start with some of the key sections, and you're not looking to pull the whole building together, but is it going to be precast? Is it a steel solution? Is it a timber solution that you're looking at? And once you start understanding the bones of the building, it's just a case of building it. And I think we impress on our project architects that the worst thing to do is to sort of throw it together at the end. But if they can go through and incrementally build it as some of those key decisions are actually understood and decided on along the way, then that's the best way to do it. Having a format which the contractor as a generic group actually are familiar with, that they know where to go and find the information. I think as architects, if you know where the information should be sitting when you're going through on site to sort of find it, it all assists with the simplicity of ease. I think it really comes down to just trying to simplify the coordination between the drawings and the specification to ensure you're not trying to hide things, you're really just trying to make it very visible and legible for everyone, so that there's a real clear message or clarity around what we're trying to achieve with the building. So I suppose in terms of updating the spec during the process of on-site, I think a lot of emphasis is put on through the course of variations or modifications, just the work that the contractors are doing on site, changing drawings and keeping those updated. And I think it's an equal effort that should be placed, but probably often, I'll say generically, often isn't put on keeping that specification up to date as well. I think too often the spec is just left and is that sort of dusty thing sitting in the corner. And it should be one of those things that incrementally does get updated as you go through the project. We put a lot of emphasis on if a substitution is put forward, that the due diligence on that substitution is done by the contractor, but at the same time, if it is accepted, then we would go through and update the specification to align with that. I think in terms of that updated information at the end of the project, there's probably a bigger emphasis on that today than there's ever been. And it's not just the code of compliance, it's not just that practical completion that you're sort of signing off. We're finding a lot more of our institutional clients are having a lot more ongoing input with those buildings. So we're at a point where a lot of those institutional clients are actually wanting to own the Revit model. So you're handing over a Revit model, and you're building into that Revit model not just the end product, but essentially all of the maintenance regimes that are sitting within that. So you're using that as a digital document that everything's sitting within the building. So having a specification that actually relates to the building that they've been delivered is incredibly important. If you think about the maintenance regimes that they might have on waterproofing systems or external claddings, the sort of frequency of the wash-offs, even as simple as the sort of frequency of changing light bulbs, that type of thing. If they go through every 2 years and change light bulbs, but they're LEDs that you put in designed to be changed every 16 years, it's a bit of a waste of effort put in there. So I think there's even more of a reason today for that spec to be up to date and coordinated with the end product of the building.